Agenda changes? None? If everybody can review the minutes of September 5th?
The only comment I had is on the bottom of page 1, where it says, applicant will receive, bottom line, will receive approval from neighbors and the select board. Well, it's really the select board, not the neighbors. You don't get approval from your neighbors to reduce the road width, right? You get it from the select board. The neighbors can ask the select board to give it to you.
And just one other comment as far as we actually did the extension requests all together one after the other, and then had the Jason Bernard I've lost the word there, but anyway, presentation.
You want to change the...
Do you, unless it's, I'll leave it up to you. Do you want to change that, or you're fine as it is?
It was out of order, but the right stuff is there.
All right.
I think it's fine.
Anybody else have anything?
Move to approve.
I wasn't here that last meeting, but there's something on here about the Goodrich
Yep.
approval.
Yep.
Didn't we cover that in the meeting before?
Yep. No.
No.
For the, no, it was, no.
Okay, all right,
No, no.
We had approved an extension once before.
okay, all right, never mind.
We have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
All right, up next is Bruce Wheeler, sketch plan review.
Hi, yeah, Bruce, I'll let George represent it mostly, but I have a 12.6 acre lot that's shown up in that big rectangle, and we'd like to subdivide it into a 7 and a 5 roughly acre lot.
The existing house is on the right side of that property. And the left side, there's been some testing done in the far upper left corner. Septic has been found there. And towards the top right corner there's a house shape represented. And that is picked off. We just literally took the shape of the neighbor's house and flipped it in there to demonstrate what would fit. But that sets back sufficiently from the property line and on a nice little rise. And to the south of that, there is a Class 3 unprotected wetland. We're staying sufficiently away from that. And to the left of the end of the house there, about 50 feet away, there was a spot that Bruce had tried to dig a shallow well years ago. And while trying to excavate it, they were turning up several large boulders. And so they left the area a little rough. We're waiting till spring to see if that turns into a vernal pool that needs a 50-foot buffer around it. So
Where's that?
I'll get up closer here.
Just to the left of where the cursor is a little bit. And,
Right about in here in these contours.
yeah.
And so that may end up having a 50-foot buffer around it, and the house is set so that that could be accomplished. And there's right-of-way comes in here. The former subdivision north of this shows 50 feet coming right to the boundary here. This line will start, there's a pin on each side of the right-of-way, and this will be the easterly pin that makes the beginning of that line. So this 50 feet will come right to the boundary.
So when's that way ends right now, serving?
The survey of this subdivision to the north shows the boundary the right-of-way coming right to the boundary.
So you're gonna keep the same driveway going off the existing house, or is that out of the right of way?
That's a good question.
I think it's just.
It's been there long enough to have
Close.
it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this new extension will be right through the right-of-way opening onto the property. And the other will be reconciled with the neighbor.
How many houses does Windswept Way serve? How many houses does Windswept Way? Is it along?
Didn't do a count.
The total in the neighborhood, if you come up Obie Ridge Road and go straight, and Windswept Way, there's 19 houses, I
Oh, yeah.
believe, altogether. It's probably 6 off Windswept Way.
Okay.
Well, using the
5.
location, you have Windswept Way, here you have Obie Ridge, which comes, I think, there. And so you probably count them from here.
8, and Bruce is 9, and this would add 10, number 10.
Hmm. And the condition of Windswept Lane? What's the condition of Windswept Lane?
It's really excellent now. There's
No.
a lot of work done to it this summer.
I see.
I maintained it while I was there for years, and then the last couple of years, it needed some repair, but it's had $10,000 or so put into it just recently.
You put up the one with the condos.
Sure.
This division, Bruce's house, existing house is here, and there's a fairly steep embankment going down to the west from the house, and the line will be in towards the bottom of those contours.
I believe that was the Old Town Road way back.
Oh, there was, oh, really?
There was a path down here through Iroquois manufacturing land, actually where the Gallaghers live and where Peter Mead did a small subdivision. But on there's another route that was supposed to be a town road that went out this way, closer to the lake. And the ancient road maps didn't show that as a road, so its reputation isn't documented. Bruce right now has a shallow well serving the house. It's down here in just onto what would be this lot. That can't remain if new septic is going to be added because of the well shield around a shallow well. So if this division is made, there'll be a drilled well for the house as well as a drilled well for the new lot.
Board members have any other questions?
Seems pretty straightforward.
I'll open it up to the public. Is anybody here for this application?
We do have one abutter in the room.
But I'm not here for this application. Right. Just happened to be here. Thank you, Mitch.
George, this sketch plan, it doesn't look like yours. Was it yours?
Yep.
I had some trouble reading some of the writing on it and
Yeah.
figuring out what was what.
Well, my hand shakes a lot these days. You
Okay.
should see some of the grade marks I made on some stakes today. Looks like somebody hit it with a spray can. So, yeah, that's me.
Okay. Never mind.
When I get to use the computer, it dresses it up, so it covers up a lot of faults.
Your writing looks a lot like my father's.
I'm sorry.
have a draft decision.
I had no issues with the
I
decision.
think it covers the bases, yeah.
Move to approve.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have to close? No, we don't. It's a
Yep.
sketch.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I'm gonna close them all down.
Be nice if you did, especially on this one.
Mr. Chairman, we have a board of 6, and we have actually 2 alternates here. Maybe we,
Would one of them like to come out?
Flip?
Want to flip a coin? All right, up next is Town of Hinesburg Highway Garage, and CSWD facility. How you doing?
Good, good.
If you could just state your name and
Sure. I'm Steve Smith, SAS Architects, working for the town and part of the design team. And also here with us is Mike Burke, the civil engineer, and Jessica Lisa, the storm management engineer, and Brian Wright from CSWD.
how you doing?
so this project was bonded earlier this year, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
Would you like a brief?
Yeah, if you would.
introduction? Okay. So everyone's familiar with the site, has been there on Saturday morning for recycling. The current, just to orient you, this shows a proposed eventual built-out site plan, but the current recycling center, drop-off center is right here, and the town garage structures are down, scattered across in this area. So essentially, the idea is to create a...
Can you just orient me to the property?
Sure. Beecher Road is here and North Road here.
And
North
we-
at the top of the page.
Yep, okay.
This is.
We were just north of there for a year and a half ago for a subdivision,
Yeah.
and haven't been back.
Yeah,
Yep, yep, right up there, yep,
Up here.
okay,
Does that give you what you need?
yeah.
Okay. And, so the project is proposed to be phased into 4 phases. Phase 1 is construction of the garage.
Steve,
Yeah.
I do have that plan if you'd want me to call it up.
Sure, I think we can explain it and come
Okay,
back.
all right.
But, Phase 1 is construction of the garage on this plateau, and that will include a new drilled well, a new septic system, and new stormwater management area here. And then Phase 2 would be demolition of the existing garage, move into the new garage. And then the next thing about the project also is this stream bank, right now the 75-foot zone is gonna be naturalized planting. So that's gonna be regraded. Right now it's primarily gravel, like everything else on the site. And it's gonna be naturalized planting with some storm treatment facilities partially in that. And then the third phase will be, so the town garage will be demolished. They'll be operating out of the new garage via construction access here. Third phase would be demolition of existing recycling. And one thing in the comments, Mitch, is it said without interruption. Actually, there will be a time when CSWD has to move off-site because
Right.
they've got to demolish this facility before they can build the new one here. And during that time, the access drive will be built and the rest of this will be paved in advance. So phase 3, 3A, let's call it, will be demolition, 3B will be construction, and then 4 will be the town coming back under separate contract and building the salt shed. Yeah.
So how many years are we talking about phases?
About a year and a half from now, if all goes well.
All 3 phases?
Yeah, all 4 phases.
All 4 phases?
Yeah.
And how long will the drop-off center be out of commission?
Well, we're just talking about, I think Brian has to, you know, he's gonna get back, but 2 to 4 months maybe in that range. It's about 2 weeks to demolish the existing facility, and then I think it's a little premature. He just saw the final version of this phasing plan, which has been evolving. There's a lot of entities here. There's the contractor, CSWD, the town self-performing some work, and then the town is hiring some work out by other contractors. So there's a lot of moving parts and trying to use what's already a small site, to, you know, to minimize the disruption.
So they would just go to another existing facility?
Yeah, we would ask people to go to Williston, we prefer. We would certainly, well before closing the facility, do a lot of outreach and information on where else people could go.
Would you possibly have to extend the hours or days or?
We can't do that without going through a lot of permit amendments, Act 250 and Act 78, which are solid waste permit, and Act 250 in the town. No, we would certainly keep our existing hours in our existing facilities, but our facilities are open 6 days a week, somewhere in the county. And actually Williston itself is open 6 days a week. So it would be more convenient in that regard.
So Williston's open at the same time frame that Hinesburg's currently open.
I'm sorry?
Williston is open on Saturday at the same time frame that.
It is definitely, yep, 8 to 3:30.
As someone who puts his trash down once a week by the curbside, should I expect that there would be some donations in that area during this period?
I don't know.
Will that affect, they don't bring, the
Yeah.
local pickup doesn't bring the trash to Hinesburg anyway.
They don't bring it to us, they bring it to transfer station. So that would not affect homeowner pickup, curbside pickup whatsoever.
And what time of the year do you think that it might be closed for?
We were talking about that, it's looking like we get the site in June, July. Yeah, July, August, September, summertime, basically.
Late summer next year,
Yeah.
maybe early fall, depending how long.
So it's hard for me to tell from the picture, but it sort of looks like the area dedicated to the drop-off center, the new area dedicated to the drop-off center is going to be a little smaller than it's currently got.
It's a little more compact, I would say, yeah. But not large, not greatly different.
And that's where the road stacking comes up because it's that much closer to the entrance to
That's correct, yes. Our booth is closer to,
North Road.
no, yeah, well, no,
Beecher Hill?
Beecher Hill Road, yeah.
Steve, point out again, like the entry to the waste,
The existing entry's right about here.
and where's the new entry gonna
The
be
new
in
entry-
collection point?
The new booth is right here, so
Okay.
about that distance,
All right.
closer.
So there's an entry and an exit?
Similar to
As
what
I
the
see it.
existing layout is.
Yeah.
Is that the email you sent? I got it.
So I may be jumping ahead a little bit, but to that point, when I was reading through the, I don't know if it was staff comments, but talking about that, oh, well, some stacking may wind up going out on Beecher Hill. Don't worry, Beecher Hill's not that traveled. To me, that's not a plan if you're stacking traffic out onto a town road.
I don't know where you saw that.
No, basically, the comment was that since you are making that distance a bit shorter, looked into how many cars would actually come to, could be stacked at the, using the CSWD facility, 270 feet more or less, figure 18 feet per car, it comes out to 15 cars, and Brian, you mentioned to me the most you really see is 12.
That's right, that's not, purely scientific, we haven't done an exhaustive traffic study, it's just my observations over a few weekends is, the line is in the range of 8 to 12 cars typically.
I'm going to be done. And I've been to the site, not for drop-off purposes recently. I need a close orientation on the site. And perhaps the public viewing this needs it too. So tell us where the roads are, where the structures, existing structures are,
It's hard to see on this because it's so blurry.
well, I
We
know,
have it
but do your
drawn.
best, but we need, we
have
need,
a drawing, if you'd like to look at the drawing, whereas if this is our only medium, then I'll do my best.
Well, the drawing, is this the drawing?
just want you to do the best, that's fine.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and maybe pull that up, it's a little.
Which one is that?
That's what it was. I think that's what was up. I think.
I was pulling up the,
This one?
Yeah. That wasn't the one that was up
It's
there.
just,
I think.
it's just blurry, so,
Oh, okay.
Maybe zooming in?
Yeah.
yeah, maybe zoom in, let's.
Zoom in into certain areas.
I'd like to know what's there now, what's going away, what our roads are.
We have an existing conditions, so,
Yeah.
so maybe that's a place to start.
and, let's see.
So this plan shows what's there now. Have you
Could you
been
even
there?
go bigger, Mitch?
Yeah, I've been there, boy, that doesn't tell me
So this
anything
is
though.
the area. If we could blow that up.
Do you guys mind if we turn off the lights?
Yeah, that'd be,
If you don't mind the snoring.
I'll poke you.
actually,
Okay,
it's
thank
the
you.
switch that's over there.
Got it. Right, right. Thank you.
And that little structure that,
And I mean, I
just
can,
about dead center there currently, Steve. Well, yeah.
All right, so just to orient you, this is Beecher Hill Road. Existing driveway comes in here. The current town garage, the main building is here. The brook is right here, so that's, you know, it's, I don't know, 30 feet from the brook. 12? 12 from the top of the bank, it's close, it's within that. There's other structures and pavements around. There's a pole building over here which also belongs to the town garage. Access to the site is, to the recycling site, is between these two buildings. The little entry booth is there, the little steep uphill is here, and then this is the current recycling center, drop-off center. They've got boxes, what's the word for those, Brian?
Roll-off container.
Roll-off containers here for the metal container and the trash, the original recycling shed, and then some other trailers back here. And this line here is a chain link fence. This is an open plateau right now.
And that's where the new building's going.
New building's going right there.
Okay.
There's an existing access road that Mike uses there, and then another one over here to the upper part of the site for gravel.
So that's pretty much to the right there, the open plateau, that's pretty much on the same plane grade as the
It used to be
parking
higher.
lot.
If you haven't been there in 6 months, you'd think it was 6, 8 feet higher, but Mike took a lot of that gravel out, so now it's essentially.
Okay, that's why I'm confused, because
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't remember it being at the same level as the
Yeah, it's very
parking
close
lot
right
area. Okay.
So the idea is build a structure there, the gravel slope behind would remain. These structures would be demolished, and any new construction would move out of the river bank area, 75
Steve,
feet.
would it be helpful if I showed the phasing plan?
Sure.
Because I think that might say a lot. Do you remember which drawing that is?
I think it's L1.1.
No, it's,
So that's the overall
Yeah.
site plan.
yeah, let's see if we could. Maybe it's this one? No.
O2L I think
1.0
and 1.1. Yeah, it's.
Oh, wait, oh, that's what it is. Okay. That's right, I forgot about that. This is in 2 sheets, so we just have to move down over here. Here we go. Put this, I'll just show the overall, and then I'll zoom in on each of these phases.
Let's start, yeah, with here, phase 1.
All right, so these are the 4 phases. And
So phase 1, recycling drop-off center stays the same. Booth is in place, really no changes other than the fence at the northeast corner moves in to allow a little more room here for access. And Mike, you plan to use this for your salt?
Winter sand.
Winter sand. So construction access is shown by this arrow, up to this upper plateau, the town garage buildings stay, no work in the riverbank. And since this was done, we've added the new electric service as part of phase 1 too, but that's underground. So phase 2, these buildings are demolished, and much, not all, but much of the work restoring the stream bank, the river corridor is done. And the start of phase 2, the town moves into the new garage, which is substantially complete. In phase 3A, which we're calling it now, this facility is demolished and CSWD moves off-site while the new driveway is built. The old driveway comes in like this. The new driveway slides a little bit west out of the river corridor, not completely out, but as far as we can go without getting into this hill. And the rest of the site is paved, and the rest of the river corridor is restored.
All right, because I think the fourth one just shows.
Fourth one is just construct the salt shed.
Is there equal paved surface in each plan? I don't remember there being a lot of paving currently.
No, the town, most of the town area is unpaved right now, it's gravel. So I think the net, just you can,
Yeah.
there's a net reduction in impermeable area.
There's
By an acre, right?
1.55 acres less impervious.
So how do you accomplish that?
A lot of the area there is compacted gravel that they use for parking and driveways. And because, you know, a lot of the area that's green on there, almost all of it is right now compacted gravel, which under, you know, the state stormwater rules is considered impervious surface. So because all of that is going from a compacted impervious gravel to a vegetated, pervious vegetated area, we're actually reducing the impervious surface by quite a bit.
There are no retention areas there right now.
It's
No.
flat gravel, primarily, going directly into the stream.
And there's proposed to be those ones to the south, the one in the middle and the one on the upper. Those are all basically
Yep.
retention areas.
You want to explain how those work?
Yeah, so what's really nice about this site is that has a gravel under it, so those stormwater basins are infiltration basins, which is kind of the best kind. It means that you're not just retaining the water for a little bit, you're actually infiltrating it. It's actually kind of the best way to treat stormwater, and it's what the state really looks for as their number one, you know, best top tier treatment option. And at this point, there is no formal treatment at the site. I mean, like this, the best you can by, you know, keeping water on the site, but this would actually be a formal system infiltrating up to the 1-year storm.
What happens after the 1-year storm?
After the 1-year storm, there is additional retention. For higher storms, we've modeled up to the 100-year storm. Both the 10-year and the 100-year storm, the peak of the storm is slowed down and the volume is reduced. So that meets or exceeds the state standards for those storms as well.
So in 100-year, do the storage ponds overflow, or?
They do overflow, there's water coming out, but there's water coming out at a slower rate than there is under the existing conditions of the site.
So where does stuff go from here? Does it go into the Platte eventually?
It does, so it goes into the Beecher Hill Brook right there at on the site, and then it travels, you know, south and west over to.
Kind of northwest, yeah.
What?
Northwest.
It the water travels south,
And west,
west.
but northwest, and, you know.
If it's going up to
yeah,
the Platte.
eventually, yeah.
It travels across where Beecher Hill happens to
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
and then goes under 116
Yeah.
and then meets the La Platte.
And is that the state requirement that you just reduce the overflow rate from what's existing, or you need to meet an actual rate or just reduce from what's existing?
Reduce. Well, match. The standard is to match, and we're actually reducing, so we're exceeding the state standard.
What's the magnitude of reduction?
The magnitude,
Or-
it varies from the 3 ponds, and I did not write it down, so I don't have it. I mean, it's recorded in the stormwater permit I've submitted, so then I can get you that information, but it's pretty significant. I mean, there's so much less impervious surface, and, you're actually infiltrating the whole 1-year storm, which is a lot of water that's not even leaving the site at all, or it's not considered to leave the site as runoff. It goes into the ground, so it's a significant reduction from existing.
Can I ask a question about new conditions of the of the waste treatment facility? So part of, I think, the reason there's a lot of room for cars on the site currently, is there just as, as far as stacking goes, is there just as much room for parking in the constrained site as there is currently? Can you fit as many cars in?
That's a good question. The pavement areas are roughly the same size. However, with our existing configuration, our waste management activities are below the tip wall, kind of off the pavement.
I
So we
know,
have
yeah.
that trash and that scrap metal container where we have truck access down below the tip wall in the gravel area. And now our truck access is within our fenced paved area. So, Steve, you point out the zigzag tip wall there. Everything south of that tip wall is really just containers and truck space for a truck to back up and pull the container. So it's really kind of to the left of that tip wall and north of the tip wall is our operating area for users to occupy that space.
So those are all open containers?
No.
Okay.
There'll be, the trash and recycling will actually have closed. We're gonna use compactor boxes rather than, currently, we have a compactor for trash, and we have a closed cover, loose material for recycling. Both of them will be compactor boxes with a hooded chute over the entrance to the box, so they
Can you
won't be open.
do you have any idea of how many cars you can fit inside now?
Currently, again, I've done some counts. We will frequently have 10 to 12 cars within our fence.
Right. How many do you think can fit in the new one?
I've got parking spaces for 10 to 12 cars, but the new layout's gonna be, people, the way they use it now, may not use it the same way. Right now, everyone dumps their trash, and then they get in their car and move it. So that actually benefits us, because cars kind of keep moving through the site. This is the only site that really operates that way, actually. Most of our other sites, we have a tip wall with trash and recycling below the tip wall, and people park their car once, and then they empty their car and do their business and move on. So I'm actually considering moving the recycling container to the far end of the site to try to replicate what the current use of the current site is now, where people would stop, dump their trash, and then get in their car and drive across the site to another parking spot and use the recycling the way they're accustomed to doing now. So I'm actually looking into that change. But I will certainly have 12, minimum of 12 parking spots on the site, because there's typically 10 to 12 cars on the site.
So
As a person who parks once and walks around the site to drop stuff off, I do not want to drive around the site from bin to bin to bin. That,
you don't want to do that. Well,
no.
the site's smaller than the existing site, so it'll be a shorter walk for you.
So I guess what's important is that if you're estimating that the queue is 10 to 12 cars outside the gate, is that the number of cars that can park inside the facility is almost irrelevant. The capacity or how quickly people can unload is really what's important. And if hopefully it can be demonstrated that the the new flow rate is equivalent to the old flow rate. That's what's gonna keep the queue beneath what you anticipate is 10 to 12 cars, and I guess that's kind of a question.
That is the question.
And the documentation here doesn't necessarily demonstrate how the flow is gonna work.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know how to demonstrate that, frankly. You know, the current facility works very well. People know how to use it, and they keep moving through it. It's one of our busier sites for the size of the facility. Essex and South Burlington are bigger facilities, and they have more traffic on Saturday. But this site in Richmond routinely see 450 cars a day, and for several hours a day, we are servicing a car through our booth about every 35 seconds. And if there's 10 cars on site, people are staying 10 or 12, they're staying 5 or 6 minutes before they're leaving. And it works, you know, once car number 12 on the site leaves, car number 13's coming through the gate. Then every 35 seconds, one's leaving and one's coming in, and it kind of works that way right now.
I guess we're worried if there's a constrained site that it's gonna be harder for flow, that cars aren't gonna be able to maneuver as easily and keep it going.
Yeah, I have that concern as well.
So what does that mean? You just have longer queue, right? What else happens? I guess
Well,
that's.
it stacks up into,
It stacks up in on the road is the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're gonna say, we approve this, we're assuming traffic flow will be okay, but if it's not, you have to come back and prove that you can make it right.
Yeah.
Is the site physically capable of making it right? I guess that's the bottom line question for us.
I don't have an answer to that question.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Where is the entrance to the site here, with the booth and the gate? Is it over here? Or is it up here?
No,
It's over
right
here.
there, yeah.
All right.
That's where it is right now.
That's where the booth is.
All
You
right,
asking
then
about
my-
the future?
No, I was just trying to get past the current, because
Yeah.
I put a number in here of 440 feet, but that's an error. So I will give a new number with that, edit that to
I
a new
think the
number.
450 feet of queuing space actually sounds about right. I mean,
Actually, I think it's, probably the existing is a lot less if it's, because I was under the impression that it was up here. But if it's actually down here, then it's really not much of a change from,
yeah, you get 2 or 3 cars just turning left and going up to the booth, so it's not a direct shot in, there's that little left turn there.
Is the layout on the site, at least in the waste portion, is that still dynamic? Is that still flexible? Or is that something that's
We've,
pretty accurately delineated here? And
We've
I'm curious.
arm wrestled over that for a few months now, and I don't know that there's a lot of flexibility in it.
What
Or the layout within your site
Oh, within the
is,
site.
I would say,
That's what I'm asking.
what you're asking. I think
Yes.
that's still dynamic. That's in
Yes.
their hands.
Yeah, I can definitely look at that.
What is the, in that area, say for example, just above the kind of staggered bins, there's a fairly substantial, is that an old grading plan?
Yes, that's an old grading plan.
The contours that
You've
run
seen-
through there?
You've seen the demolition below all the
All
different
right,
layers.
okay.
So if you had a better, a clearer
That's
drawing.
relatively level.
Right.
Was there much, like it seems as if the apron for the town garage, say for example, that kind of compresses this a little bit, and then I presume that's a fairly substantial drop off that apron to the recycling facility?
No, I think there's I think they're pretty level. They're within a foot of an elevation. From
So that again is old contours?
No, these are new. There is a drop here. Rob.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Mike,
Um,
is it 5, 6 feet?
I think it varies between, from, let's see, this would be,
It's
from the
about-
driveway side, about 4
let's-
feet,
let's
to
zoom in
about
on
6
this.
feet on the opposite side.
Yeah, I'm talking about that grade, right there.
Right here.
Yes.
It's about 6 feet at the maximum, I think.
6
Grade
feet.
differential, yeah.
We can go really in here if you want.
No, it's fine. That apron, the dimension of that apron, Steve,
Dimension
from
was-
building to that grade
it
drop.
was set by the distance Mike needs to get the big trucks in and out of the garage
Okay.
bays. It's 80 feet.
Okay.
So, I mean, just looking at that, a potential way of enlarging the drop-off then would be to put a vertical retaining wall there instead of having a graded slope, and you'd get another 15, 20 feet, I don't know.
But it sounds like the truck requirement or the
Well, no, you can't change the apron.
But you can take away the grade.
You could take away the grade and just
one could do that.
make that a wall.
It was a cost.
Cost issue.
But it's this way, and
Yeah.
this also gives us a way for a vegetated swale. I think, Jessica, that was part of your stormwater calculations.
Well, I've certainly been in recycling facilities. I mean, you're the one that knows, certainly better than we do. But this notion, it's a little like, you know, shopping in town where you park your car in one place, you do a transaction there, then you drive somewhere else and do another transaction. Seems like a terribly wasteful inclination. So, you know, my sense is, and you know, I go to the facility. I do some of that naughty stuff.
So you move your car?
I try not to, but I confess that on occasion I might. But I would think if you could resolve the internal, you know, a lot of this seems to be sort of the internal solution on your particular site.
Yeah.
And I think if you could concentrate and work that a little more efficiently potentially so that it really is just one stop. You're not hopping out of your car. It seems ridiculous to me to be doing that.
That's the way it's designed and shown right now is one stop.
Yeah.
But the problem is that our customers all want the one or two spots right by the compactors. That's literally the truth. And,
Start giving prizes. maybe for-
Unfortunately, and they will pay at the booth and pull forward and then slow down and kind of wait
Eye
and
the
see
situation,
if someone's gonna
yeah.
move or leave, or, you know, they just won't go take an open spot. It's pretty remarkable that way.
Well, the area seems sufficient, you know, I mean, it's not a whole lot different in terms of just overall square footage or acreage than what you've got right now, so it seems like a workable situation.
When you move the access on Beecher Hill, a little further down Beecher Hill, so that's kind of in the area where you currently have the residential sand piles. Those are still going to be available to residents?
There's still an area there for that.
Okay.
Yeah. You can see, doesn't really get into that too much, but
Okay.
there'll still be the potential for doing that.
Will this affect us being able to get gravel out of the pit, or less gravel, or it won't hurt to affect that?
I mean, I'll just say, I think this is an exemplary project, and it's heartening to have the town at the vanguard of whether it's stormwater. I mean, the current circulation pattern we have through that thing, where basically you're going through the town garage, I would imagine that's just an unbelievable inconvenience. So to segregate these activities in this fashion, to, you know, minimize circulation, to have this tremendous buffer between Beecher Hill Brook and what, you know, these are really things I think to be commended. And there may be details in this that deserve scrutiny and certainly comment by us, but in terms of a general approach to the project, it really seems laudable.
So we have an email from a neighbor wondering about noise and visibility. This is a permitted use in the area, and my guess is its use predates probably most of the people who are either living in or own the properties around, so I'm not hugely concerned about possible occasional noise and so forth.
I did a drive-by,
but
and I don't know how far that road is, but it's a long ways away from the garage.
Well, but my question is to the applicant, do you anticipate more intensive use? Well, I guess, do you anticipate more intensive use? And if you do or don't, is there going to be no more or less noise, traffic, so forth, coming from the reconfigured facility? Can you just comment on this?
I don't plan on doing more work, but.
No change in use.
No, and the way the building will be facing south now, any sound coming out of the building will go away from that.
Okay, maybe neighbors would like to hear something more specific if you can.
Mike, if I can, Aren't you gonna be moving the trucks quite a bit less on the new
Oh,
facility?
yeah, because we're not gonna be working our screen pile once we have the sand shed, our sand pile, because currently it takes 20 minutes to load a truck, because it's frozen and snow covered, and once it's inside the shed, hopefully it's not gonna freeze as hard, and we'll be loading inside that shed. So during the winter, we're gonna be moving around a lot less.
So can we get testimony that would allow us to make findings that indeed noise impacts might be lessened by this configuration?
With specificity towards this particular neighbor, can you tell us where the road is in relation?
Right
to-
across the street, I think North Road.
Oh,
And it's not right across the street.
It's up here.
It's up the road quite a ways.
Okay, all right.
Is that entrance that we're seeing,
It's Lincoln
a
Hill.
little below, that's Lincoln Hill, just at the bottom of the drawing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Lincoln Hill's entry
It would
right
be up, it would be like another inch or so above where the cursor is here. But Dennis, should I read the letter at this time, or I was gonna wait till public comment?
For those of you who are interested, and you can see, Mike printed out the map, so here are the garage operations. This is, I'll pass it.
I think most of us back here can't see
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, that's why I'll pass it down. The house that they're talking about is back here, and it's 1,000 feet
Okay.
from the operation.
But, you know, it is a concern, and we care.
Across the road is a relative term, I guess.
The letter is from Jane Racer and David Cloutier, and I hope I pronounced that.
Cloutier.
Cloutier? Okay. We live across from the existing town garage and transfer station on the east side of North Road. Our property is situated on a hillside, and the sound carries from the existing gravel pit and gravel site. My main concern is an even higher amount of noise level during the construction period and after, with more truck traffic, machinery, etc. Sound has been an issue in the past. The police would use the pit for gun practice without warning neighbors, and it sounded as though they were right in my yard. I called and complained several times, questioning using a rural residential site for that purpose. My other concern is how visible the new building will be from the road or from our property. I would hope that the tree buffer would be preserved or added to with more landscaping so a large industrial garage is not visible from North Road. We are unable to attend the DRB meeting, but as residents of 30-year residents of Blackberry Hill Road, we do have concerns regarding the development in the rural residential zoning area in Hinesburg. I think actually you've kind of touched upon a lot of these different things, because with less movement to the trucks, that probably would be less noise. The landscaping is being increased with the project. I should tell you that I sent the applicants the Dropbox link to all the plans, and you know, I'll say this: anybody listening to this on VCAM, if you have an interest in a project, by all means, contact the Planning and Zoning Office, and we're happy to email you information with any of these applications. But yeah, I think you've addressed sound. I think you've addressed.
What is the landscaping that's
landscape.
proposed? And they're talking about $24,000 worth, if memory serves me roughly.
Steve, which one? Oh,
Jessica?
Jessica?
The best one to answer this.
So on page SW3, we have a site restoration plan, and there's a whole schedule of different plants that we're showing, as well as some coloring. So
Let me get a little closer here.
yeah, because there's a couple different hatches. Everything that's blue are areas that are not to be disturbed. So in those areas, existing vegetation is going to stay where it is. Everything in red is going to be natural seed, natural vegetation. In the swales, you can see there's kind of like a little wetland symbol, kind of in the middle of, yeah, all through there. That's a wetland, kind of a seed mix in all the stormwater areas. And we list specifically the plants there. And then everything that has the dots, like where your cursor's there, that whole
Oh.
big swath all down to the river, there's a list of trees. As well, so I guess I should also say, and on the plan, there's some big trees too. So we didn't want to wait for the little trees to get big, so we're doing a mix of little trees and big trees. So
Oh,
you can
these-
actually
these?
See so those ones there are actual big trees. So those are 4 to 5 foot tall, or 2 to 2.5 inch caliber fall and burlap trees, and a mix of both sugar maples and red oaks. They're the ones that have the big symbol. And then in the area where it has the hatching is a mix of all the other species, which is the sugar maple, dogwood, white ash, sycamore, red oak, and slippery elm. And those were all based on the specific tree species that you'd find naturally in a riverine floodplain, such as even just across the river where there is a natural floodplain on the other side of Beecher Hill Brook. And then-
So do I understand that your proposal is mostly to put landscaping in the buffer area?
Yes.
On the theory that that would be the most effective screening from the road?
From the road, from the river, and from any residents on the lower edge of the site. If you look at the grading, the other edges of the site, kind of the northern edge of the site and the western edge of the site are really high. So you have like a steep bank kind of around those sides of the site already, and there isn't really any disturbance happening
Yeah.
over there. So we're focusing the landscaping in the area where right now it's a compacted gravel and buildings and, an area where we really want to restore. the
So you're
river
not thinking
corridor.
about things right around the structures like shrubs or trees, decorative trees or things like that?
No,
It's
so the
in
landscaping is not decorative landscaping. The landscaping is to naturalize the river corridor and to provide treatment in the stormwater swales and treatment areas.
Is the elevation of the elevation of the new building is plus or minus 6 feet above the existing building?
Yes, yeah, but by building, you mean the 2 garages, right?
Right, it's
Yeah,
gonna be-
that's about right.
it's gonna be a little higher up.
6 to 8 feet higher, maybe. Yep.
May or may not affect sound traveling from it.
Could be, I think maybe what she's hearing here is sometimes Mike has to get up on the hill behind to collect or work with gravel, and that sound would be more likely to travel, and that'll continue as it has. I think that's right, Mike?
Yep.
Yeah. I think the operations here on this side are to a large degree protected by the hills to the north and west. It pretty good, I mean, it does rise up, as Jessica was saying, pretty sharply this way, and it's open. I mean, it's not open because trees all along both sides of the brook, but open to sound to travel east. That's more likely. Southeast.
So I guess from looking at the elevations, I just was assuming that, because I didn't really look at the dimensions and I don't know the old dimensions, but it looked like a taller building than the current buildings.
It is taller. The building size, so you can lift the dump truck bed to work on it inside the building.
So we're talking 10
Another-
feet taller,
another 10 or 12 feet tall.
and it's on top of a 6 to 8 foot elevation, so it's more than 8 feet taller than the old buildings.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you take the roof, if you're talking roof heights, yeah.
Roof peak, yeah.
Top elevation.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's not a peak, right? It's a flat roof.
flat.
Flat roof. So I did have 3 questions now. So as far as the wetland mixes, given you've talked about how well this site drains, will wetland plants even survive in a?
No, I used wetland as like it's a poor way to describe this. So wet meadow and detention basin mix is not truly a wetland species. So I worked with a plant biologist on these specific species, and they really are for stormwater treatment areas. And we went over the soils on the site, and these work really well for inundation for small periods of time after storms, and are completely fine for when the site dries out
That's great.
between
Okay.
storms.
So as far as the the storm water basins and the year storm. So I asked earlier and you said it would overtop at 100. What year storm would it not overtop the basins, the ponds?
Somewhere in between 1 and 10.
Okay.
Which means tomorrow, Dick.
Yeah, I mean, isn't 10 year the state minimum for
It is
stormwater?
It is not for detention. You're not required to hold the entire 10-year before it overflows. It's a different criteria. It's a flow-based criteria, so you have to keep it long enough that it leaves the site slower. I don't know if that is.
Okay, I think either it was a different situation or I misunderstood some earlier, previous applications that I thought you had to actually be able to hold 10 years, a 10-year storm, you had to be able to hold it. And that the only outlet would be through the normal outflow pipes. It should not overtop any of your stormwater ponds.
Maybe I'm not explaining. It's not that the pond is unnaturally overtopping. It's going out just the normal outlet, the 10
Okay. Okay, so yeah, when I said overtop, I mean it's going over the banks of the stormwater pond.
No.
Okay.
Our stormwater pond, just in the normal outlet, the 100-year goes through the normal outlet. So it's not like it's
Okay.
failing or going over. Yes.
Okay.
It's designed to safely pass the 100-year.
Okay, so last question. So under the old parking, all that impervious surface, a lot of it's getting turned into non-impervious surface, whatever. Pervious. It's pervious. Having used the site, having used the drop-off, we noticed a lot that, like Esplendy or whatever it is, the tree company parks their trucks and their choppers and stuff like that back into that area, and there's 3 or 4 trucks there parked at times.
They just did that last year, that was it, and then we threw them out.
Okay, so I didn't know if that was going to be an ongoing thing where the town offers the parking for their vehicles. Okay.
Something that was supposed to be a couple of days was 6 months.
Got it, thank you.
So that's an example of if traffic becomes an issue, they take care of it. Or they come back before us, right?
Say that again?
Never mind.
Yeah.
It sounds like they did what we will require them to do in the future.
Mike, what's the purpose of the paving on the north side of the building?
The access to the back of the building.
Right.
And because we have storage right behind the building,
What kind of storage?
like our plow blades and those types of things.
Okay, you keep that back there?
Yeah, and that's the access, because I think the propane tank's buried back there.
Yeah, the propane tank is here. There's also a gravel access drive where all it goes up above. Right now it comes down and starts here, just come over. And the other reason it's 20 feet is the fire safety required it.
Okay.
I think it's 24.
They relented 20 feet because we were pushed up against the bank. We negotiated 20 feet.
So is there much, getting back to the landscaping, the vegetation, and especially this acoustical issue that was raised, I do think it's somewhat mute, but is there much in the way of retained vegetation on the east side or on the west side of the brook? I'm assuming that there's, if I recall correctly.
There is vegetation.
Yep.
Right down to where the water flows.
Yep.
And we're adding to it, but not taking any away.
Okay.
And it's pretty mature. This time.
It's extremely minimal what's there.
Yeah.
On the west side?
Between the parking area and the river.
Yep.
It's practically none.
So most of it's on the east side of the river?
Most of it's on the east side, so if you walk out there, I mean, you won't,
Mhm.
it's on the bank, but it's not a significant amount that's out there. But that said, we're keeping it and adding to it.
Whatever's there, we're keeping.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Board members have any other questions?
It's fun in the dark.
Would you like the lights back?
Yes, please.
I'm in fall.
Thank you.
Whoa. Quick read.
Well, I'll open it up to the public. I don't think anybody's here for, you did have one question about the parking though, switching to handicap.
Oh,
Yeah, we made that change and we've added some additional, so now you have a total of 9 parking spots for 4 or 5 employees.
yeah, and
Okay.
just for the record, I'll just mention that, the spots that were shown on the plan, you have 1, 2, you have these 2 that are here, and you have 3 over here. On some of the other plans, I know this was just a little error, but actually they were both shown as, these over here as, handicap. But even assuming 1 handicap and 4 employees, if you remember a public coming here and you weren't handicapped, you really technically didn't have a space. So, per our conversations, you've said they've added some parking spaces over here. And it will generally, and Mike, I guess it would generally be your employees that would be parking here, so if they need to move, so the trucks can come out. And then you have some parking here, potentially for the public, if you would. But then again, as I understand, there's very little public that actually comes.
And do we want to go over the sign real quick?
It's an interesting question with the sign, and I put that in there because if this is completely not visible from the public right-of-way, it's not technically a sign.
I mean, talking about the CSWD sign or which sign?
I'm talking about, the CSWD sign is existing, we're talking about the town garage sign. Mike, is it gonna ever be visible? If it is visible, I mean, it's an easy little, yeah, not a big deal. And I think it just might be worth it just simply to have the DRB say, it's not a big deal, it's a legitimate sign. If it's visible and has to be, it meets the standard.
But you could stand down on Beach Hill Road and see the sign from the road. It would be a vantage point where you could see it.
Well, then that makes it a sign.
You're talking about the sign on the building?
A proposed sign, it was on,
Chain link fence,
yeah,
right by the gate,
it'll be up
right
here.
up in here.
It'll be up
That's
here.
interesting.
And there's an image of that sign on, you're gonna have to help me with this, one of the sheets.
L 1.0.
There you go.
Oh, actually, then, I think it's the one I have up here. Yeah, this actually has multiple sheets.
Bottom right,
Yeah. Actually, this has multiple sheets, so, there we go.
you
And I can zoom in on that.
go. 15 square feet.
15 square feet, has to be less than 16, can't be higher than 15 feet in the air. It's gonna be placed on a, and Mike, correct me on this, it'll be placed on a 6-foot high,
High chain link fence, yeah.
and probably not at the very top of the fence also, so it meets those standards.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
Much rather be safe on this, here. Throw it in.
No problem with being safe, I guess, but I would say if it's way up the hill, I mean, it clearly is not meant to draw customer attention to your business. It's you have to, even if you could see it from Beecher Hill, you'd have to be, you couldn't read it, and you'd have to be looking for it. So that one I would, would probably have said, yeah, I'm not worried about that one. The Chittenden, the drop-off center, that's more of an advertisement. So that one might have to be a little more strict about meeting the rules for that one, I would think.
Right, but it's
That's
an
existing, so-
sign that is gonna continue in its approximate spot.
That's what I understand.
Okay.
And it did get an approval way back, I think in 93, I believe it got an approval, 93 or 94. It was in the report.
So exterior lighting, is it all on the building? Is that what I'm gathering?
Yeah, so the story there, it's all on the garage.
Yep.
None for the salt shed, none for CSWD.
Okay.
And I believe there are 6 wall-mounted fixtures. They're all sharp LED cutoff,
Yep.
sharp cutoff, and then 2 under the canopy at the entrance. Controlled by switch, but also with a motion
3,
detector.
4, 5, 6, and 2 under here.
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to see it this way.
You don't use the salt shed at night?
Excuse me?
You don't use the salt shed at night?
But, yeah, just a loaded truck.
As needed.
We're not working in there, so.
Right, so it doesn't need lighting.
Take that up in deliberative session or something, or what do you want to do?
I guess I'd rather take it up in deliberative session.
Yeah, me too.
Just give us a chance to talk about it.
Yep.
Instead of taking up time here.
You making a motion?
I guess we don't have any public input, so
Nope.
yeah, I guess I'd make a motion, we close the public input and take it to deliberative session after the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to congratulate the town consultants. I think they made an excellent presentation.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And maybe ever staying for the next one too, who knows?
I think they might not be noticed. That's it, thank you very much. Thank you, Brian. Good night.
All right, up next, Town of Hinesburg rec fields, review of proposed revisions. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So you just want to explain what you're changing, a little quick?
Yeah, when this proposal for the rec fields first came before you, it was kind of in conjunction with the haystack crossing. Haystack at this point is so up in the air, and based on respect for the Bissonette family and the way he wanted to farm the existing field, we constructed basically a construction road to 20 feet width. We feel at this point that that's more than adequate to service the rec fields. And the other changes kind of are all enveloped in that. The landscaping changes are based on the reduction, are basically no development at this time. The drainage changes are really necessary. We know they've been necessary for a while. This was just documented. What else there is there?
So is this mostly about capacity and access right there, Tim?
It's mostly about the access road, really.
I mean, I guess, thinking back to when we were talking about it, on the rare occasion when there may be overflow crowds for maybe a Little League game and also a soccer game at the same time, and maybe you'll get a couple hundred people there or 90 cars or something, I think we wanted extra wide access so you could move around each other, but also, as cars do around here, pull off and just park. I'm kind of hearing what you're saying is there's still going to be room for the casual person who drops by and may not pay too much attention to parking signs on these rare occasions, and there'll still be accommodation for that. I guess
There's
that's my
still-
main concern.
There's still, the sides of the road will still be mowed as they are now. I believe it's 12 feet on each side of the road.
And it's not going to be wet clay that's going to imprison the cars on
Our
October
thought
and
is that
November
it's-
days?
that It's not going to be, because if it's that wet, the fields won't be in use anyway. The road as it's built has been wonderful. It's supported truck traffic, car traffic. It's really been quite a surprise how good it's serviced whoever's needed to go down there.
Does the path of the current road follow that specific delineation that we see right, I mean, I'm seeing it on 2017 plan set 7/21/17. That road, that drawing right there, is that
Yep.
the proposed access road?
Yep.
And that's where it is right now?
That's where it is right now.
Okay.
Would it make sense to like escrow landscaping funds so that when Haystack gets built out, that you can then screen it later, or is that something, I don't know.
We have funds available now.
No, I know, but your point is that there's nothing to screen now, so that it doesn't make sense to try to put it in when you don't know what it's gonna look like and what is gonna need to be screened, which I can appreciate. I just didn't know if it made sense to hold back some funds so that if and when it's developed, appropriate screening can be placed. Or if you even do that.
In my opinion, the plantings that are yet to come on the east side will be adequate. It's gonna look very nice. I think if you've been down there to see the plantings that have already been done between the parking lot and the field, and you kind of mimic that all the way around, I think it's gonna be very visually pleasing. As opposed to the solid cedar shrub hedge that was in the original plan. I think it's a decrease in the number, but it's an increase in the effect.
What is the lawn underlay there?
What is what? I didn't hear your.
What's the lot underlay there?
Lot.
Oh, that's Haystack Crossing.
So the roads,
It'll go, it will move.
it'll move.
So the plan is that road will come in through the normal development if the development's ever finished.
Got it.
So that road goes away.
That road goes away. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, it's not cutting through the homes.
Can you
Got it.
just show on, do we have a pointer so you can just show on the map, like how the landscaping changed? Because we don't have like a revised landscaping plan, do we?
Yeah, I mean,
Just
I don't
having
have any idea what's actually there, and I don't know what's changing at this
Well,
point.
this is the landscaping plan that's here, and what was there before was a group of trees that were in this particular area.
There's about 30 cedar trees, I think, along there. Mixed in with a couple of hardwoods.
And so you're gonna, I guess you gave us a narrative, but can you be more descriptive, like how it's gonna change?
The basic idea, as I understand it, is the cedar hedge is the part that's been taken out.
And are there-
Everything, there are several trees planted between the parking lot and the playing field. I think we planted 4 or 5 along there. The islands, 2 of the islands have been finished. We haven't planted anything to the northern edge of the parking lot yet because there's still plenty of construction to do. And there's boulders that are on the site now which need to be placed around the edge of the parking lot.
And there was something, I don't even know what I read it in, but there was something about the baseball field had to be moved and the playground had to be decreased for some reasons.
The playground was originally in this area, and I think the new road impacted it, so it's been moved from over here to over here. I tried to look to see, it was in the narrative that basically explained that the ball field moved. It's really hard to see exactly where, I'm not exactly even sure.
So where was the original road? I mean, I can't imagine we would have approved a plan that had the road over top of the baseball field or running through a playground, so.
I believe the original road actually mimicked this proposed Haystack Crossing Development Road, and it would come back into here, as I remember. And Tom, I'll let you talk about, I guess it was built, instead of being like this, the road was moved here, like that.
Right.
Well, there was a site plan that was approved where the road was supposed to go. So I don't understand why it was not built to the plan, or it didn't come back to the board to say, hey, there's a problem here. We'd like to redirect the road. I mean, the town of all people should know that when there's a site plan, it's expected that you're going to follow it or you're going to request a change to it, as opposed to other applicants that we've had that have made changes without requesting. So I'm just a little surprised that it wasn't built to plan, or we weren't asked about it before it was built.
Well, there's a couple things. Like I said, our rec field proposal was kind of working hand in hand with Haystack, which at some point along the line, Haystack is kind of off in the ether right now. When that happened, the agricultural field, which was being hayed and still could be hayed, at the request of Joe Bissonette, he wanted, the owner of the property, wanted to keep as much of that agricultural field available for his, haying as he could. And he felt that the road in that position would be much more valuable to him as the landowner and farmer. But we needed to move forward with the rec field construction, and that seemed like an appropriate thing to do to honor his request to build our construction road farther to the north.
Are these roads going to stay here if years from now when Haystack is actually built, or is it going to be removed and reset in a different location?
That's a very good question, Mitch. And our assumption is that it's going to be moved, which is why another reason why we feel that the 20-foot width is appropriate to serve the rec fields, and it would allow, us to not spend money on something that's just going to be torn out in the future.
I thought I remember approving a temporary road.
Can you pull out the
I
original?
thought for
site
sure
plan?
we did.
That's my memory, that it was always intended to be temporary and that it would be taken out when the actual roads for the
Yeah, so we
development
did
got put in.
approve that road.
Actually, I didn't bring
Do we
that.
approve
See, I
the
thought this all
What?
sounds very familiar, like it's
the
gone.
modified location?
I thought for sure we did.
We should have that available.
Well,
I thought you did.
Before construction began.
I thought we did.
I didn't actually include that in this packet. I can,
We knew it would be temporary
look it
because
up?
we weren't sure what was gonna
I
happen.
could take 5 minutes and you can
Yeah,
continue.
sure.
Well, we can go on to,
So there was the culvert question or something? That's a culvert that's like out on Shelburne Road?
Well, Limro and Dickinson says, although the road is now at a different location than currently approved, we have been told by Tom Ayer there's constructed a 20-foot wide box cut. So it is not in the location that was approved.
that's at Shelburne Falls Road or out where that swale is?
The culvert in the plan is out where the swale is.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
On that corner there, I think.
Okay, so it goes under the temporary road.
Mm-hmm.
Got it, okay.
The culvert actually goes under the more permanent part of the road.
Yeah, where you would expect to end up, where it would end up being, I guess.
Well,
Or it's actually built up pretty well there?
part of the road that's been there for
Okay.
years,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Okay.
And so we're just saying that right now, it's a smaller culvert that's in there and that we don't see the need in going to a larger culvert? Is that the
No.
question?
Until future development.
Because when the modeling was done, it was based on hundreds of buildings in the area, and with less than permanent impermeable surface, there's really no need.
But then who, if there is a need, who pays for the upgrade and the culvert? The new developer?
In my opinion, it would be the development that's gonna be responsible for the added runoff.
Yeah. And I assume, I mean, there's gonna be significant road development
Right.
in that area anyway, so if you have to take the culvert out to put in something different to meet a much larger development, to me, that would just be all part of the development.
Did you take, I think it is, I mean, like you said, there's nothing there, but I think it is a problem that we have an unscreened parking lot from potentially a development. I know there's nothing there. Did you reallocate the, landscaping to other places that you guys felt like it would be better spent, or?
That'd probably be a better question for Mitchell. I don't think so. It's just basically what they took out was the cedar hedge. All of the hardwoods are still there, the shrubs.
Oh, I can ask him when he comes back.
Yeah. It was rearranged a little bit because of the difference in the road, but
Can you explain the revised drainage easement? Is that something Mitch is
I
wanting?
think Mitchell would be better.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can zoom in.
And there's an elimination of the drainage ditch along the road.
Right, rather than having ditches where the water can flow quickly, what we found is that the road with the crown on it gets the water off and just, trickles out through the grass. And that seems to be a better plan than constructing ditches.
So where's that sheet flow going? It's not contained in any way, you're just sheet flowing it to the existing field.
Yeah.
There used to be remember there was a retention pond that we used to have to work around for haystack. Remember that? I wonder, was that supposed to deal with some of that if that gets
No.
built? Do you remember it was in that corner? And I
Yeah.
remember having to that was one of the reasons the fields
was a
had to be
half mile
shifted
farther
funny
east,
and
I
all of
think.
that other.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that part.
And is that how the drainage is?
There was supposed to be a big pond there.
So how's the gravel parking area drainage supposed to function? It's just sheet flowing?
It's lower between the parking lot and the fields. There's a bit of a swale there. Everything kind of runs that way. There's underground drainage under part of it.
There's what?
Underground drainage, piping,
That goes where?
that heads to the south. In terms of the road itself, it just sheets off north and south on its way down through.
Let's see, here is the original landscaping plan.
So it looks like there's still an access off the parking lot for emergency vehicles to squeak around
Oh
the
yeah,
end.
that's what they were gonna use that spot where the playground went. Remember, that was so that, I think they were thinking that was how ambulances would get to the fields if they needed to.
Oh,
It's all coming back to me.
okay, so that's,
Do you remember that?
That's
That they were like, oh,
landscaping.
that they're gonna leave a gate open and they could
Here.
drive there.
Let's try site plan.
yeah, it looks like
Here's
in the current plan where the walking path comes down past the parking lot, it's built up. It looks like there's a little connection to the parking lot where an emergency vehicle could get to the soccer field. I mean,
This
I
this-
assume right there.
Right, this was the original site plan. And you can see how the road kind of mimicked where the potential road on the Haystack development was going to be. And where the new one curves in a little bit more over here and comes around like this. And then evens out to come like this and then into here. That's the difference.
And Mitch, in the original approval, was there any,
Temporary road provision?
no, any provision for dealing with water runoff?
What I looking at the plans, the original plan had, well, a wider section that included shoulders, as well as swales that were to bring the water probably faster to, let me just minimize this, bring the water faster to perhaps these areas out over here. It's kind of an odd, I mean, with my experience with stormwater, it was just kind of an odd, I looked at it as that's kind of an odd design. I can see why somebody would say, yeah, let's just take some swells and bring it somewhere, but comparing what was there before and what's there now, environmentally and probably even just simply the movements of where you want to move water, it's probably a benefit not to have those swales and allow the water to just come off the sides of the road itself. It will be treated through what's called an offset, where you have a certain width of pavement and you're creating at least a minimum of a vegetated area to the side of that, which if we're talking about 10-foot half of road going on to 12 feet of grassed area, that more than does that. And yeah, you're really not going to get a lot of benefit from what I can see on this from the actual swale, so I think it's really a non-issue, I mean, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't even remember the discussion of swales, because I do remember talking about, leaving shoulders, enough area along the roads for people to be able to be able to pull off and park along the road, and you're not going to do that if there's a swale there.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, that was kind of the oddity as you look at, let's just use half a road, you're talking about 10 foot wide of gravel and then a more pitched 3-foot shoulder. If somebody's and then you have a swale that somebody's not going to want to be on, versus somebody pulls off onto a grassed area. But then again, there are 80 parking spaces, and that should be sufficient for, talking to Jen, and I don't know, Jen, if you want to talk about that a bit as far as the use.
I mean, and the other thing, it's apples and oranges. It's, okay, if you do a soccer jamboree, that's gonna be in the fall. You're not gonna have baseball going likely in the fall unless it was a fall ball thing, so. And then in the spring, again, if it was a lacrosse jamboree as opposed to, you could do lacrosse and baseball. So I mean, again, in a perfect world, sure, it'd be great to have 140 parking spots, but would that be necessary? No. I mean, the number of times that you would need all this parking is small. So I did feel fairly confident with the 80 spots for the lot. Maybe some overflow here and there. Maybe we have a volunteer or two directing some traffic, some moving some flow. It's usually what happens at jamborees anyway. The Charlotte Jamboree, soccer jamboree was last Saturday at Charlotte Central School. I talked to the coordinator today. They had 2 Recreation Commission members that directed parking and people were carpooling, so I still feel okay with the number of spots.
And in Charlotte, there's like nowhere else to park. I mean, here you could park up the road, you can park in town, like there's other.
There's definitely more of a venue to park somewhere, trek in, carpool, walk,
Right.
that sort of thing. You're absolutely right. The Charlotte Central School, there really is, it's kind of a destination, and there isn't a lot of area because it's public, it's, private homes adjacent to the school. So we're in a different scenario.
So a question that never occurred to me when we were talking about it originally was, one of the things that was talked about was, these fields could be used for like league type use or play. So what if a team is coming from another town in a bus instead of individual cars? There's clearly no bus parking in that parking lot. did we ever even consider the thought that teams might arrive in a larger vehicle like a bus or something? And what would we do if they did?
They'd have to drop them off and go park over at the school or someplace else.
Or the organizers could block off
Yeah.
a few double spots for buses with cones.
I mean, that's what they do at CVU, with that upper lot on Pond Road. I don't think there are any more than 80 spots at that upper field at CVU. And there's at least a bus there, and I haven't ever seen it being an issue.
Okay.
For soccer or for lacrosse in that lot. And I think it'd be, I mean, I haven't been there for a little bit, but there's enough room for the bus to come in and turn around.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, plenty of room.
Do we actually have a right-of-way across the field to the rec lot? Is there actually a right-of-way?
Oh, sure, yeah.
No, I mean, is it written?
Yeah.
It is on
And
the
it's-
Mylar.
And
that
where is,
actually-
and where is that right-of-way? Is that the?
That right of way is
Existing
on
location?
as per the prior plan. So they're
Okay.
coming here in part. One of the revisions that is being requested is to revise the subdivision plan, to basically show a new location for the right of way to, reflect what was actually built.
And so that right-of-way has to be revised.
Correct.
And it's gonna be revised again when they actually do the subdivision.
Me.
'Cause,
I'll
well,
pass that on to.
So I asked while you were getting the old site plan for us, have you reallocated those, the landscaping that was supposed to provide the buffer for the parking lot? Have you reallocated that funding
No.
and bushes, or?
I think that's really more of a question.
They said it was for you.
Well, I don't think there's any more. It's basically,
Yeah.
we took the cedar trees out, right, Mitch?
Right, and from the calculation, it was one of these things where it was less, but it still made the value mark.
I just know that we have, that we need to screen parking lots, and even though there isn't something there now, there could be.
and I'd guard against, because we've never treated it as a hard and fast rule that, that's the minimum that you spend, but if the board felt more was needed, more was approved, and so, I'm not quite ready to just say, oh, yeah, we should just chuck the remaining. I'm kind of more leaning toward, keep it in the bank for future, as something does happen on the BizNet lot. Maybe you do find you want those cedars. Maybe the people that are gonna live there, want a row of cedars behind their houses, instead of that looking into the parking lot. So, I'm not ready to say, just say, oh, let's just stick with the 15,000 and call it done.
Is there a row of cedars between the parking lot and the soccer field now?
No.
Are you proposing that now?
It's just small,
If you've
it's a
ever
small
been down
shrubs,
there,
right?
I don't,
We're talking about landscaping as plantings, but have any of you been down there yet? You should take a trip down, because the actual fields themselves and the trees that are sprinkled around make for perfect landscaping.
I'm sure if you were looking from the parking lot into the, but this would be if the people are in their backyards looking into the parking lot. That's the screening between the parking lot and a potential development that may never happen. But it's a screen, we need to screen parking lots.
Well, under normal circumstances, until that gets built,
Well, that's what.
can we request or require that, this needs to be revisited,
Yeah.
pending, the actual occurrence that some development is gonna happen.
I think that would be
At some
great.
point it is. And
Do you
I
wanna
do
let-
think it is incompatible to have a parking lot, basically backing onto people's rear yards, especially when we have the opportunity to do something about it, so. I'm
Can
sure
we-
it's not the priority right at the moment in terms of getting this done, but I think there is an obligation to do
I
that.
do too. But I would be fine with it being a future thought.
And perhaps the problem's going to be is what sort of time frame.
Or trigger. Maybe you might want to say when there's development within a certain distance or a certain phase of the Black Rock Haystack development.
Couldn't you just say, as, you know, construction alongside the parking lot? I don't think you need to worry about screening for houses halfway across, but I think if that adjacent,
So you're
Adjacent,
talking about these specific
Yeah.
ones here?
or adjacent to that road.
but we weren't gonna do anything there anyway, really.
I mean, that would be part of the development's
Yeah.
job, to figure out what they're doing with that road. So, because you're talking about one subdivision or property versus another subdivision or property. And so within the bigger subdivision, it's up to the developer and the board to determine what needs to be done within the property, but normally you want to potentially screen to a neighbor's property. And that's where either that screening goes on the Bissonnet side, the Haystack Crossing side, or it goes over on the rec field side. And since it was already discussed that it would make sense to have it on the rec field side, I still think that's where it goes. I'm just not sure, we can't say 2 years, we can't say 3 years. How do you create a trigger, because it could never happen, right? And at what point do you say, okay, you're off the hook? Because if you say 5 years and then they build it in 6 years, then you're off the hook, and then the screening never gets put in there.
Well, I think instead of a time frame, you could just look at in terms of a development, when there's development either adjacent or
That
within a
abuts?
certain distance.
I'm not sure we have to require any screening on the east side. This is gonna be built, and we don't know if anything else is gonna be built. If they wanna build something, they can protect their own development by putting in screening.
Another thought?
I mean, just as an abstract matter, if we didn't have this Black Rock development that is in who knows what stage of proposal if that were just agricultural field, none of us would be thinking about requiring screening on the east side.
corn.
And it's so incipient that I really don't care whether there's screening on the east side of the parking lot or not. That's for BlackRock to figure out if it's ever built. Let the town save a little bit of money.
It's certainly our intent to add the deciduous trees, the hardwoods. They're just gonna look fantastic over there. But
And what's there
the
currently
salt-
looks really nice, and
Right.
you make a great point. If you drive down and you look at it, it's appropriate for what it is. You go out and say, oh, it's
And
great.
whether it's fine for just its own structural integrity,
Yeah.
but just for screening purposes, I don't.
You would never screen it, is what you're saying, if this were a
Yeah,
development
yeah.
coming to us.
No, let them
But,
pay for it.
Okay.
It's safer for the kids running, they don't want to be coming out behind cedar trees and everything else, you know, you can see them.
Right. Actually, a good point.
Okay.
All right, was there
swing
anything
me.
else?
There's some construction left to do on the road, I take it from the Lemro and Dickinson letter.
Yeah, and Doug's narrative, he spells out what needs to be done.
Put the top coat on when everything's done.
But everything's done.
Yeah.
How close is it to being all done?
Yeah, what's the status of that?
We have one soccer, we'll call it a soccer field, multipurpose field, and Little League field.
So you think like next spring,
Well, we'll have one
We're,
field.
we're waiting on the dollars to show up.
We noticed that the thermometer hasn't been going up.
I have $190,000 queued up, ready to go.
Okay.
We're just waiting for the Supreme Court to say, go ahead. I mean, it's as simple as that.
We could all wait for a year.
If they were to speak tomorrow, we'd have probably one done by the end of the year.
Don't hold your breath.
I'm not going to. I'd be strangled by now if I held my breath.
Are you guys, putting in the multi-purpose building? Not, is
The
that?
storage shed?
That's more long-term. Certainly, we would like to at some point.
Well, it was an Eagle Scout project, and apparently that's been delayed due to several constraints. Story of our lives.
You need
No
a little
water?
building out there?
No, there was a Eagle Scout that came to me that was doing a project, and he was very excited, very, very gung-ho, and he said, that's perfect shed, we can put the mini goals, we can put the balls in, save some storage fees. And I said, it's gonna take longer than we were hoping for. Okay. I'll be here.
He didn't want to be doing it when he was still 27.
Was that a senior project?
It's a Eagle Scout, and technically he has 2 years to complete
That
it.
guy at CVU, he built the press box in the football field as a senior project.
I know.
He did
That's
that.
outstanding. Oh, so a senior grad challenge. Yeah. I need to find a grad challenge. That's a time, that's.
It's perfect right now. Go out and find one. September, it's perfect time.
Yes, I've dealt with some students. Some of them have been very good, and
Look, we're broadcasting.
a lot of them have been really good.
Yeah, somebody might be watching.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right, is there anything else? I'll make a,
Can I be a public comment?
Oh, yeah.
sure.
Can I represent?
If you open it to the
As
public.
a taxpayer, on this application, I guess I would make a comment that I have concerns on the roadway design as being only a 12-inch subbase. Given the lack of insight on what the future and the duration of this road and what it's going to require for use, I have hesitation or consideration that there would be deterioration, particularly on the shoulders or the lack thereof, given that it's only a 20-foot cross-section. And if we're gonna have potentially buses, but also potentially parking on that grass swale, it's just gonna be a maintenance that the town has to consider going forward. That I think without a shoulder, the maintenance is going to increase, just to keep that wearing, or that 6-inch top course in a reasonable fashion for potholes as well as for stormwater maintenance. And just a comment to your observation, Mitch, about the stormwater, I think part of it, because of the high water table likely in this area, is that frost heave, it won't be paved, but the freeze thaw cycle with only a 12-inch subbase could potentially be an issue on this. So I think the deterioration will occur faster than we will anticipate a gravel road of similar use. So that's just, I think, a heads up. The last comment is that the town plan, and I don't see it on all the site plans that predate all of this, but the town plan still shows a recreation trail to the south.
Correct.
And I didn't see any connections there. I see stormwater basically going off in that wet area, so there's been no accommodation for facilitating that future rec trail. So that's a comment, I guess, just curious whether that was thought about at that point of the original site plan. And if it hasn't, then going forward, maybe we can make a comment that at some point we need to look to this site to how can we facilitate that trail.
How far away is that planned trail from here? Do you have any idea?
It should be in this,
Actually, you can see.
almost due south, I think, of this area here.
Oh, we turned it,
In this crossing Patrick, that long-term trail that goes south.
The trail that's on the plan actually is shown. It comes,
So the town plan shows those two trails, one paralleling Patrick and then one crossing Patrick.
just wonder if.
The town map.
Right.
the map is,
And I only
Separate
have the
from-
old one, I don't know if, has the new town plan been adopted, and I haven't honestly looked at the, yeah.
I think it's a
Hasn't changed.
financial constraint to figure out a way to cross Patrick Brook.
Yes, it's a vast
I think it's
connection right
further
now.
over though, that's the only thing. I think that trail you're talking about is further over, but I have to look into that. Because you do have
it was
a, you
on
do
the,
have a plan, you do have one that's here.
It was on the plan that, it was on the big plan. It was on the Haystack Crossing plan.
That's what on the official map here, it just shows that there's a long-term plan for a recreation trail that crosses Patrick Brook.
So is that, the trail that you show there now?
Goes
I mean,
out to 116.
is it in use? I mean, is it, or is it going to be mowed or maintained when the fields do become in use?
Problem in speaking with Alex Weinhagen and the Trails Committee Chair, Lenore Budd, with that trail, if we were to maintain it as a trail, it's basically a trail to nowhere. Because somewhere along the line, there needs to be a bridge going across Patrick Brook in order to access, we'll say, the Creekside development. But that's simply not in the rec field's budget to install a bridge. People currently are using the Bass Trail Bridge to access the field site, which seems to be working out pretty well. It's not an official trail, but rather than build a trail to nowhere, I think I have Lenore's email somewhere.
Well, that one trail wouldn't, I mean, I know it wouldn't get quite to Creekside, but even if it came out to 116, people in Creekside could go out to 116 and bop over to it. It would still be better than going all the way up to Shelburne Falls Road.
No, but it'd be quicker to cross over the.
Bass Trail, but I, are we allowed, are regular people allowed to use that? I don't know what the.
I don't know why not.
They seem to have been for, ever since the field has been built, I've seen people walking from Creekside over to there. I think in the long-term plan, if Haystack ever does get constructed, there's supposed to be a bridge, a car bridge with sidewalks connecting
Right.
over the
Yep.
water
Over
and
here.
sewer connection, somewhere in that.
Yeah, I think it's
My
over
kids
here.
get dumping off on 116.
Well, there's supposed to be a sidewalk eventually along 116, right?
So as I told Alex and Mitch the other day, we're not opposed to maintaining a trail. It's basically gonna be a bush hog
Yeah.
trail. But to have a trail that just leads to 116 kind of seems.
How
well,
far
this is no
away
real
is the
connection.
sidewalk on 116?
Well, listen, it just, Kenny's is just around the, it's just on the other side of the corner there, right?
Yeah, so I mean, Kinney's, if there's a sidewalk to Kinney's.
And I think that.
And then a couple 100 feet or so before you get to the bridge, or?
Right, and I believe it's 100% is to build that bridge, if I remember.
Build a pedestrian
When there
bridge.
happens to be the need, and that one could possibly trigger it.
That's a win. Thank you.
All right, anything else? Board members? Well, I'll make a motion to, anything else?
No, I was just gonna say, make a motion to close
You-
the public hearing and take it up in deliberative session.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We do not have a draft for this, right?
No.
Did not write a draft. Too many,
Any of you, right? Steve's work.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch. Anyone here?
Nope.
His office.
Yeah, I was wondering who that.
Do you want me to take it?
Actually, I can text him right now, just to make sure it's his.
Or maybe it's a roll. I'm not gonna stay for this, right?
All right, other business.
you have the Laszlo decision. There's a draft decision there.
Yep, I'm not participating in that, John can stand on
I will not be either.
What is that?
This is what you guys talked about last meeting, right?
McNeil Road.
I was not
So
here.
we have,
This is the, this is the class 4 comment.
oh yeah,
More roadway issues. So Greg, you want me to be official on this one now?
No, I'm not participating.
Yeah, but he should.
I was there.
He should.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah, go.
So you're,
Forgot it goes all the
yes.
way.
Consider yourself
I mean, you could do it, but you
participating.
do it on 116, the shoulder of 116. And yeah, I mean, Kenny's does get you to that point, but
That's what I wanted to know, what was there between there, I couldn't remember.
I would move to approve the revision as written.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is it only printed?
Sorry.
Should be in there.
I got
Didn't know
No,
you
it's in
didn't.
here.
Is it?
It is?
Yeah. Or in the Dropbox it was.
Oh.
Under files.
doing the last one?
Oh, Lazo. Right.
You participating in that one?
Wasn't a
I,
folder.
yeah, I think so. Where am I? Where is the, this is draft?
This is the class 4 road.
Yeah, I drove down there.
Whoa.
Did you go to the other end?
No, I think I was at the right end.
Yeah, Laszlo.
No, you can drive, can you drive through there?
Not in my vehicle.
Not in your vehicle.
Mine you can,
If I had a manly truck, I'd be okay.
Manly.
might scratch the side of it.
I guess 3 of them didn't find any issues.
Yeah.
Last week?
Was I here?
That's the, they wanted to reduce the requirement on the end of the class 4 road,
Oh, yes, I do.
because originally it was like
'Cause
you
they
have
wanted
to, you have to
the
make it class
trees, and
3.
they had
and-
the things across, and I remember it all now.
Class 3 is the standard if you're using part of the class 4 road. But in this case, serving one house, we, and the select board, because I think
Select
that's,
board, yeah,
that
that
standard,
was the main thing,
that standard comes from the select board, not from
Yeah.
us, right?
And they approved it.
Yes, yes. Yep.
All right.
You have any discussion? Are you ready to vote?
I'm ready to vote.
How do you vote? We've already voted.
I vote in the affirmative.
All right, it's unanimous,
Is that the last
Did
one?
you vote?
except for a couple of abstentions.
Well, Greg,
Did you vote affirmative?
I voted for
I've got 7 people voting.
Can I get a count?
I'm not participating.
I
Raise your hand.
abstain.
Oh, so Dick, you're not on this other?
I am not on this one. Huh?
Okay.
Okay. So what do we need to talk about?
Well, you want to go to deliberative session to,
I would move that we retire to deliberative session.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, to discuss? I
Town
don't know what the
town
garage.
town garage.
Town garage, was there anything else?
I think they're doing a pretty good job. Hope they follow the plans better than the rec.
Thank you.